A man attended a gala alone that night, only to see the woman he had walked away from years ago. But what truly shook him were the four little children standing by her side. Each one looked just like him. And in that moment, the silence of the past echoed through four tiny voices. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. The charity gala, held right in the heart of winter, looked like a perfect night where kindness and glamour came together. But the truth underneath it all ran too deep to be seen even under the glow of crystal chandeliers. David Grayson, standing at the top of a tech empire, had come alone that night. Wandering through the ballroom with a champagne glass in hand, he saw right through the fake smiles around him. Back in the day, he used to be the life of these events. But tonight felt different. His heart wasn't in it. His mind was somewhere else, maybe stuck in the past, maybe replaying a chance he thought he'd lost forever. People had noticed Clara's absence. David had casually said she had a headache at the last minute. The real reason? Clara's constant pressure lately. Every time he even made eye contact with another woman, it led to endless questions and cold silences. Coming alone tonight wasn't a choice, it was survival. That's when he spotted a familiar silhouette in the crowd. And suddenly, it felt like his chest caved in. Emily. There was no mistaking her. Even after all these years, her walk, the copper glow in her hair, her simple elegance. It was all still there. But what really shocked him wasn't Emily. It was the four small kids gathered around her like a tiny army. David froze. For kids. For unique little faces. But they all had the same gray eyes. The same sharp jawline. The same eyebrows. The same as his. Something snapped inside him. The champagne glass hung midair in his hand. The noise around him faded. The world went completely still. His eyes locked onto those kids, and they stared back with eyes identical to his own. A voice broke through the silence, Harold, from the board. David? You all right? David just nodded vaguely and, without thinking, started walking toward them. As he made his way through the crowd, Emily noticed him. Her face went pale. She leaned down and whispered something to the kids. Then, in perfect sync, the four of them turned to face him. One tugged at Emily's dress. Mom, who's that man? Another tilted his head. He looks like us. David's legs almost gave out. His heart was pounding so loud. He was sure the whole room could hear it. He stopped in front of Emily. Their eyes met. Years of silence hit them in one crashing wave. It was all there in their eyes. Questions. Regret. 1,000 things unsaid. Emily, he said, his voice cracking. I think we need to talk. Emily gently pulled the children close. I knew this moment would come. David's voice broke. Are they? Are they mine? She didn't even need to answer. Those eyes said it all. But still he needed to hear it. Emily nodded slowly. Yes. Leo, Finn, Noah, and Max. Max was standing a little behind the others, half hidden behind his mom, peeking out at David with shy, curious eyes. And in that moment, David's entire world flipped upside down. A camera flash went off. Someone at the event had just captured the scene. But for David, time had stopped. The world had shrunk to just 5 people, Emily and 4 little copies of him. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, barely more than a whisper. There was no anger in his voice, just shock. I did, Emily said. But you were unreachable. Your assistant blocked every message. The letters came back unopened. Back then, all you cared about was your work. David's jaw clenched. I didn't know. If I had, he couldn't even finish. Because just then, Clara walked into the room. Her eyes scanned the crowd until she saw David next to Emily, surrounded by 4 children. And those children, Clara's face turned to stone. This was the moment everything would come crashing down. David took a deep breath. Emily, please. Let's get out of here. We need to talk. And just like that, the door between past and future creaked open. Nothing would ever be the same again. As the noise of the crowd faded behind them, David led Emily and the kids to a quiet little corner of the ballroom, tucked behind heavy curtains. In a night full of fake smiles and glittering lights, this small hidden space suddenly felt like a safe place. But inside David, a storm was raging louder than the music outside. The 4 kids stood in front of him in a row. One looked at him with fear, another with curiosity, and another as if he'd known David his whole life. Emily gently placed her hand on each of their heads. This is David, she said softly. He's your father. That word father hit David like a knife to the heart. It brought with it a strange mix of overwhelming joy and sharp regret. Which one of you is which? David asked, trying to tell them apart. They all looked so much alike, yet something in their eyes gave away their differences. Emily pointed to each one. Leo's the one in blue, the oldest. He's always looking out for the others, a real leader. The one in green is Finn. He loves taking things apart and fixing them, like a little inventor. Noah's wearing gray. He draws when he can't find the words for his feelings. And the one in red is Max. He never stops moving. Right on cue, Max started spinning in circles. David couldn't help but laugh, stunned and amused, while noticing how Leo moved closer to his mom, protective, barely 5, and already acting like the big brother. Why didn't you tell me? David asked again, this time more sharply. Seriously, why? How could you build a whole life for them without me? Emily took a deep breath. Don't think I didn't try. I reached out so many times. But you, back then, you belonged to a different world. Your assistant blocked my messages. The letters came back unopened. I even waited for you in a hotel lobby once. For hours. But you never showed. David lowered his head. Silence hung heavy between them like the weight of everything unsaid. Just then, Finn, who Emily had called Nathan, tugged at her dress. Mom, I'm hungry. Me too. Max chimed in immediately. Noah, meanwhile, just kept staring at David. Long and quietly, like he was trying to read his soul. David looked up and motioned to a waiter. Could we get some of those chocolate desserts? For the kids, please. Then he knelt down in front of them. How about it? Want something sweet? Leo looked at his mom. When she nodded, the 4 kids lit up and yelled in unison, yes. Then ran after the waiter. But even as they walked away, they kept glancing back at David. Once they were gone, David turned to Emily again. Did you name them all yourself? Emily gave a small shrug. The birth was risky. All 4 at once. The doctor said I might lose 1 or more. But they were all fighters. So I had to be strong too, even if it meant doing it alone. David ran his hands through his hair. I should have been there. With you. With them. It's easy to say that now, Emily said, her eyes glinting with hurt. But back then, you were someone else. You weren't protecting me, you were protecting your stocks, your deals, your deadlines. Her voice trailed off, because from the entrance of the ballroom, a familiar voice rang out. There you are, David. Clara. She stormed over, heels clicking, her red dress stunning but her smile tight. Her eyes scanned Emily, then caught sight of the kids. And, who are they? She asked, her tone sickeningly sweet. Before David could speak, Leo stepped forward confidently. I'm Leo Grayson. My brothers are Finn, Noah, and Max. We have our dad's last name. Clara's face turned to stone. It was like the blood drained from her body. Her fingers dug into David's arm. These are your kids? She hissed. A whisper, but one that carried like a scream. Emily stepped forward. Yes, they've spent 5 years growing up without knowing their father. That's about to change. Clara didn't blink. She stepped back slowly, like she'd just been hit. Perfect, she spat. 4 little surprises to destroy everything we built. Congratulations. David moved toward her, but Leo grabbed his hand. You're our dad, right? David knelt again, eyes glassy. Yeah, he said hoarsely. Yeah, I am. And just like that, Clara turned around. Without another word, she walked out of the ballroom. Her eyes full of rage, her heart full of bitterness, but it didn't matter anymore. Because David Grayson had finally chosen not what to protect, but who to protect. His children. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, David Grayson stood by the window of his luxury apartment, staring out while the faces of 4 little kids he now knew, but hadn't really met, kept playing in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Leo's serious gaze, Finn's curiosity, Noah's quiet stillness, and Max's nonstop energy. And when he opened his eyes, he was met with something else, a threat. Clara. She'd stormed off the night before, not even pretending to hide her anger. But David knew her too well. Clara wasn't the type to walk away quietly. People like her didn't mourn what they lost, they came back swinging. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. I started with last night's photo. There's more. Make me an offer if you want to talk. Otherwise, see you on the front page. Attached was a photo of David kneeling down, shaking Leo's hand, an incredibly private moment. In the background, Emily and the other kids were clearly visible. A chill ran down his spine. Someone had been watching them. And now, those innocent children were about to be turned into tabloid targets. Without wasting a second, David called his head of security. Victor, get here. Now. I need to know if this came from someone inside the company. Who took pictures that night? Who posted what? I want everything. Then he called Emily. Her voice was calm, but David could hear the worry underneath. Someone's outside, she said softly. Taking pictures. The kids haven't noticed yet. But I'm scared, David. Really scared. I'm sending security, David said. And I'm on my way. Please don't open the door for anyone. Within 30 minutes, he pulled up in front of Emily's building. Security was already positioned at the entrance. When he stepped into the apartment, he was hit by a warmth that felt both familiar and completely new. Breakfast plates were still out in the kitchen, toys scattered on the floor, and the sound of kids laughing somewhere inside. Emily opened the door with tears in her eyes. David knew she was trying to stay strong, but the fear behind her eyes said it all. They're in their room, she said. I told them you were coming. David nodded. His heart felt strangely heavy. Leo asked if you're really staying this time. Finn wants to show you a circuit board he made. Noah's been drawing all morning. And Max still hasn't stopped moving. They walked together to the kids' room. The door was decorated with colorful drawings, clearly Noah's work. Suddenly, it burst open and Max yelled, He's here. The other three peeked out behind him. Leo looked cautious as ever. Finn was holding a tangle of wires. Noah quickly hid his sketch. Hey, David said with a small smile. I hope you're not still mad about the chocolate desserts yesterday. Leo squinted and walked closer. Are you staying this time? For real. David knelt down to his level. I didn't know you before, Leo. But now I do. And yes, I am staying. I promise. Leo's eyes lit up for a second, but he quickly went serious again. Mom doesn't like liars. David lowered his head. Me neither. Finn lifted his circuit board. I think I messed something up here. Can you help? David chuckled. Of course. But tell me what's more complicated, circuits or people? Finn didn't hesitate. People. Definitely. Just then, Noah walked up slowly and held out a drawing. It was a stick figure family. 5 of them. 4 small, 1 tall. This is us, he said quietly. David looked down at the picture. His eyes welled up. No billion-dollar deal had ever meant this much. That drawing, that was his world now. Then Emily appeared in the doorway. There's someone else who wants to see you. David turned. In the living room stood Victor, tablet in hand, looking deadly serious. We reviewed the footage, Victor said. The person who took the photos wasn't one of the gala guests. They were brought in by someone from the inside. And we believe they're planning to leak everything to the press. Possibly tied to Kingston. David's expression darkened. Maxwell Kingston. He wanted to sabotage the Westridge merger. So now he's targeting my kids. Victor nodded. It's likely. Emily stepped forward. So now it's not just your kids. The media is watching them too. David looked at their faces, 4 tiny people, each so different. And all his responsibility now. Then let this be a warning to anyone coming after us, he said quietly, but with steel in his voice. No one gets to use my children as weapons. Emily whispered. So what do we do now? David answered without hesitation. Now, we protect more than just our past. We protect our future. Just a few days after that quiet morning conversation in Emily's kitchen, everything in David Grayson's life had shifted into a new rhythm. Now, before taking his CEO seat each day, he was making breakfast for the kids, replacing batteries in Finn's robot, hunting down Max's missing socks, and quietly watching Noah sketch at the table. But that morning was different. A major storm was brewing in the business world, and Leo had an important school performance. For the first time, David wasn't prioritizing a boardroom. He was choosing a school stage. As he got dressed, his phone lit up with messages. Emergency. Media leak. Kingston's on the attack. Emergency board meeting at 7 a.m. Then another one popped up. Blackwood Technologies CEO hiding secret family and fortune. That headline hit David like a punch to the gut. The photo attached showed him, Emily, and the kids. The article was twisted, full of misleading claims meant to paint him as both an unreliable father and a questionable leader. Emily walked in with coffee and stopped when she saw his face. Did it happen? David nodded. It did. Kingston leaked it. You and the kids, it's all out now. Emily's fingers trembled slightly. Noah walked in this morning holding a newspaper clipping. No expression on his face. Just asked, is this us? I didn't even know what to say. David clenched his jaw. Well, I do. We're not going to respond from a podium. We'll respond from our home. What about the board? I'll meet with them at 7. But by 1 o'clock, I'm walking out of that building because I have a school play to catch. Emily looked at him, surprised but proud. He wasn't just talking anymore. He was showing up. When David stepped into the meeting room, the 12-person board was already waiting. Tablets, reports, and open newspapers were laid out in front of them. David, Harold, the chairman, began, "We trust you." But this article, investors are freaking out. David remained calm. I didn't just meet these kids yesterday. They're my children. I'm not the man who ignored their lives. I'm the father who's going to protect them. Another board member cut in. But our stock is dropping. Merger talks are at risk. Before it drops any further, David said, sliding a folder across the table, here's what we're doing. These are the documents proving Kingston's leaks are fake. Records from his offshore accounts. Secret agreements with Clara. Corporate espionage and proof he bribed media contacts. The room went dead silent. David continued, I built this company. But going forward, my life doesn't revolve around this office. I have kids now, and I'm not going to be the kind of man who says he's always at work but never at home. By 9:20, David wrapped up the meeting. I made a promise today as a father. At 1 o'clock, I'll be at my son's performance. If that costs me this job, so be it. But I'm not breaking that promise. And with that, he walked out, leaving behind a room full of unsure executives. 12:55 p.m. Emily had saved him a front-row seat in the school auditorium. But backstage, Leo wasn't looking at the stage lights, he was looking at the audience. Max was zooming around behind the curtains. Finn was still trying to get Jupiter's rings to stay on. Noah had already finished drawing the sun on the backdrop. When David walked through the door, fast and out of breath, Emily stood just enough for him to see her. Leo's eyes met his, and the doubt disappeared. David slid into the empty seat and whispered, I'm here. The curtain rose, and 4 little kids began to share their version of the universe. Finn represented Mars. Max was a wild little comet. Noah quietly pointed to the sun, and Leo, standing tall, described Earth, the heart of it all. As the audience broke into applause, David's eyes welled up. Emily leaned over. You've been to 100 CEO meetings, but I bet none of them made you feel this proud. David just nodded. None of them ever meant this much. And in that moment, he made a decision. He wouldn't just be a businessman anymore. He'd be a full-time dad. 3 months had passed. Spring had quietly swept away the last traces of winter. Trees were blooming, and the kids seemed to be growing faster every day. For David Grayson, time was no longer measured by email hours, but by spilled milk at the breakfast table, Max knocking over his chair, and Finn asking, Dad, why won't this engine work? The new house wasn't just a house. It was a beginning. A place with a basketball hoop in the yard, echoes of 4 children's laughter in the living room, and a kitchen where giggles blended with the steam from morning tea. Emily was the quiet architect of it all. She wasn't just the kids' mom anymore, she was now the director of the Grayson Family Foundation. They offered education and support to single-parent families, using her own experience as a guide for others. That morning, after dropping the kids off at school, David came home and found Emily in the kitchen. The table was covered with papers, coffee, and a sketchbook, Noah's latest drawing. It showed a 5-person stick figure family, for little ones, and 1 big grown-up with a huge smile. Behind them, the sun was shining. At the top, it read, Rules. 1. We listen to each other. 2. We never give up. 3. We don't go to sleep without hugs. David picked up the paper. Number 3 is my favorite. Emily smiled. Leo came up with it. Finn drew it. Max smeared a cookie on the corner. Noah colored it in. David didn't say anything right away. He took a deep breath, then asked gently, Do you want us to keep living here, together? I mean, really together? Emily wasn't surprised. After all, they'd already been under the same roof for months. But this was different. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a confession. A turning point. Living with you isn't exactly easy, she said, smiling slightly. Your ego alone could fill a whole room. David laughed. Only 1 room. That's progress. She stepped closer, her eyes soft but steady. But if you figured out how to fit 4 little hearts into 1 home, maybe I can figure out how to live with your ego too. And that morning, no papers were signed, no rings exchanged, but a quiet agreement was made. The agreement to become a family. That night, quiet in the bedroom in 4 small beds, 4 small bodies drifted off to sleep. Leo dreamed of being a captain. Finn had left a half-assembled motor by his pillow. Max had kicked off his blanket halfway. And Noah was staring up at the ceiling, tracing imaginary stars in his mind. David walked between the beds, pausing at each one. He whispered to himself, "My boys. My second chances." Emily's voice called softly from the hallway. "Noah's still awake. He wants to ask you something." David turned and walked back into the room. Noah, hovering between sleep and wakefulness, whispered, "Dad, will you still be here tomorrow?" David knelt down and brushed his son's hair. "Tomorrow, the day after, and every day after that. I'm here, buddy. I'm not going anywhere." Noah closed his eyes and murmured, "Good, 'cause now you're in our picture too." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We share second chances, silent heroes, and true love.